Picture this. A video game studio just made over $1 billion. Their next move? Everyone assumes a sequel. Same hero, bigger sword, maybe a cape this time. Instead, they hand the entire franchise over to a guy who's been dead for 1,300 years, has a face that reportedly got him fired from a government job, and technically became famous because an emperor had a fever dream. That's not a joke. That's the actual pitch behind Black Myth, Zhong Kui, and the internet just got a 15-minute look at it. So let's talk about the second most famous face in Chinese mythology right now, and why game science looked at their own golden goose. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, star of a game that sold over 30 million copies, and said, actually, let's bench him and go with the ugly bureaucrat instead. Because here's the thing, Zhong Kui isn't new. He's not some fringe folklore the writers dug up to seem edgy. This is one of the most recognizable protective figures in all of Chinese culture, a guy whose portrait has been nailed to front doors for over 1,000 years to keep evil out. And his origin story is, frankly, unhinged in the best way. The story kicks off in the Tang-dynasty, sometime in the 7th or 8th century. Zhong Kui is a scholar from the Zhongnan Mountains, and by every account, brilliant. He travels to the capital, Chang'an, to sit the imperial examination. Think the single hardest test in the empire, the kind of exam that decided your entire future, your family's honor, everything. He crushes it, top of the class, first place, and then the emperor looks at him. According to legend, Zhong Kui was not easy on the eyes. Square jaw, bulging eyes, wild beard, the whole package described in old texts as genuinely frightening to look at. And the emperor, repulsed, apparently, purely by his appearance, strips him of the title he'd just earned, not because he failed, because of his face. Let that sink in for a second. This man did everything right. He outstudied, outperformed, outscored every single person in the empire that year, and lost everything over something he had zero control over. It's basically the most extreme academic rejection letter in recorded history, except instead of, please consider other options, it's you win, but also you're disqualified because we don't like how you look. Zhong Kui, understandably devastated, kills himself right there at the palace gates. Here's where it gets interesting, though. This is not where the story ends. This is where it starts. Because down in the underworld, the ruler of hell takes one look at this guy's situation and goes, hang on, this is talent going to waste. So he does the mythological equivalent of a career pivot. He crowns Zhong Kui the king of ghosts, hands him command over 80,000 demons, and gives him one job: hunt down evil spirits and protect the living from the stuff that goes bump in the night. So to recap, rejected by the living world for his face, promoted in the afterlife for the exact same reason. That face that got him blacklisted from a government job? Now it's a weapon. Demons take one look at him and flee. The thing that ruined his life becomes the thing that saves everyone else's. Now here's the part that actually explains why this guy is a real, worshipped deity and not just a spooky campfire story. There's a second, separate legend, and this one has actual historical paper trail, involving Emperor Xuanzang, one of the real Tang emperors, a man who genuinely ruled China for decades. As the story goes, Xuanzang falls seriously ill, and nothing his doctors try works. Then one night, he dreams. In the dream, a small, mischievous ghost creeps into his chamber and steals a jade flute and a purse belonging to his favorite consort. Before the emperor can even react, a much larger ghost, dressed like an official, broken hat, blue robe, bursts in, grabs the little thief, gouges out its eyes, and eats it. When the emperor asks who he is, the ghost introduces himself, Zhong Kui, the scholar who failed the exam and died at the palace gates, now sworn to protect the realm. The emperor wakes up, and he's cured, just like that, whether you buy the medical logic there or not. And look, I got better after dreaming about a ghost eating another ghost is not exactly peer-reviewed science. What happened next is very real and very documented. Xuanzang was so shaken by this dream that he commissioned the court painter, a man named Wu Daozi, to paint Zhong Kui exactly as he'd appeared. That painting became the template, and Tang court records actually confirm that emperors started handing out Zhong Kui portraits to officials as New Year's gifts, a tradition that trickled down to ordinary households by the time the Song dynasty rolled around a couple centuries later. Which means this isn't some obscure village legend nobody can verify. This is a folklore figure with an actual paper trail running through Chinese court history. An origin myth so effective it got turned into official state-sponsored home decor. And this is where we hit the part historians genuinely can't agree on. So I'm not going to pretend there's a clean answer, because there isn't. Some scholars think Zhong Kui was never a real person at all, that his name actually traces back to a Han Dynasty word for an herb used in ancient exorcism rituals, centuries before the scholar and the exam story ever existed. Under this theory, the guy came first as a concept, a ritual, a word people shouted to ward off spirits. And the tragic backstory got bolted on later to give the tradition a face and a name. Other historians point to a completely different real-life figure, a governor from an entirely different dynasty, whose nickname literally meant ward off evil, and argue his identity slowly got folded into the Zhong Kui we know today. Nobody has fully cracked which version is true, and honestly, given how many centuries of retelling stand between us and the original source, it's entirely possible we never will. Okay, so now fast forward about 1300 years, past the exorcism rituals, past the folk operas, past the door paintings hanging in millions of homes every Lunar New Year, and you land on Gamescom, August 2025, where game science stands on stage, fresh off the biggest win of their careers and says, our next game isn't Wukong 2, it's him. And when you actually sit with the mythology, it kind of makes perfect sense. Sun Wukong is chaos, rebellion, a trickster clawing his way up through sheer stubborn force. Zhong Kui is the opposite. He's order, he's judgment. He's the guy who got wronged by the system and came back to enforce a better one. Where Wukong swings a staff and improvises his way through problems, the newly revealed gameplay trailer shows Zhong Kui fighting with a sword, wielding fire, and using paper talismans. Imagery pulled straight from centuries of exorcism ritual, not invented for the game. Even the studio's own promotional poem, released alongside the reveal, leaned hard into that Judge of the Dead framing, describing him walking freely between the underworld and the living to decide, in their words, who lives and who dies. That's not marketing fluff dressed up as mythology. That's the mythology, barely touched. And here's a detail that should make you feel something. Game Science has apparently stuck to their August 20th tradition specifically to update fans on this project every year. Meaning the 15-minute trailer that just dropped wasn't some random surprise. It was scheduled, deliberate, exactly 1 year after that first teaser reveal. This is a studio playing the long game with a character who is, quite literally, defined by patience. A man who waited centuries after death to be recognized, then decided the wait was worth it. So no, this isn't a sequel. It's something almost more interesting. A completely different corner of the same folklore universe, built around a face that got rejected by an emperor and ended up guarding 500 million doorways instead. And honestly, if there's one thing Zhong Kui's story proves, it's that getting turned down for the job doesn't mean you're not qualified for a much bigger one.